Well, Bob, we're back.
Hey, Drew.
How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm cold.
I was about to
I know
say
I
you.
know we're asynchronous and all this, but man, I woke up to like 5 degrees this morning. I think it's up
I
to
know.
18 now.
I know. It was brutal. It was like piercing cold this morning. I was taking the kids to school, like 6 degrees. So, our friends up north are rolling their eyes at us right now. But still, for us, it's tough. It's tough.
I was on a
I
conference call a couple of minutes ago with some people from Boston,
Yeah.
and I could see it coming. They're like, "Oh, what's it like down in Nashville?" I said, "Actually," and they're like, "What? It's colder than us." I felt like we got one up on the Northerners.
I actually learned something about you yesterday. It kind of ties into weather because you being a bit of a California guy for part of your life.
Florida.
That was it. Florida?
Yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking California. Anyways,
Does that ruin the story?
no, it still works. I actually ran into your lovely bride when she was leaving work yesterday because she teaches at the school my kids go to, and she was carrying, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything, but she was carrying an orchid. And
She was.
she said, "Bob loves orchids." And I thought she said it's because of your California. I thought she's the one that told me that, but she must have said Florida. But she was gonna bring you this orchid because you were gonna work your magic and bring this thing back to life. And I was like, man, that's a little nugget about Bob I didn't know. He's a big orchid guy.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love them. I think they're fascinating living organisms. I mean, they're plants, obviously.
Right, right.
What I love about them, I think, is because I guess it's probably some Freudian thing, but people when they'll get an orchid or someone will give them an orchid.
Uh-huh.
And the thing about orchids is the flowers stay for weeks at a time, sometimes a couple months, right? Like, and that's why you see them sitting in like hotels and things like that. But when they die, a lot of times people will throw them away because it's just dead sticks with some green leaves on the bottom, and they stay
Mhm.
that way for months at a time. Um, but what I love about it is that if you take the time and you're patient and you trim it and you water it, they will bloom over and over, maybe once or twice a year. So you have to be patient, but
Mhm.
you don't throw it out when it stops blooming. If you are patient, you'll get the benefit of like they become even more beautiful when they bloom over time. And
I
so
love
anyway,
that.
yeah,
I feel like there's a whole episode there. I mean, you just like described great marketing.
right.
Don't throw it out when it's not working. It may only bloom a few times a year, but I'm like sitting here drawing all the analogies, but that's a whole nother episode. I I love that. I love that story. I was thinking as we were getting on this morning, this whole idea of the human algorithm is something you and I are passionate about, which is obviously it's marketing, but it's how do we use technology, use AI, use strategy to build greater human connection. So the whole idea behind this podcast is that, right? And you've written a lot on this stuff and spoken a lot about it. And I've learned a lot. But I was having a conversation with a potential client yesterday, and he asked me. He was a little bit older than I was, and I kind of understood his tone. He said, "Well, what are your thoughts on AI?" And I had a feeling I knew where this was going, and I just said, "I love it. I love it." He was like, "Yeah?" And I said, "I love it because of the human connection it gives me." And, he was just totally thrown off by that response, and I was like, "Well, I use AI on a daily basis so that I have more time freed up to actually spend time with humans and connect with other people, and so I give it all the stuff that would keep me away from that." And you could see almost a light bulb turn on in his head. He was like, "Oh, well, I never thought of it that way." And so you had a great idea for this episode. I think it's just like the day in the life. Like, what are some of the tools, the top 3 tools that we're using right now as CMOs that really anybody could use and incorporate into their daily rhythms that help us not just be more efficient at our jobs, but actually help us spend more time face to face, knee to knee, Zoom to Zoom, connecting with other humans. Anything you want to say about that?
Well, I mean, I think you know where I stand on it, but just for the listeners, is one of the things that I like to tell my clients, and you and I have talked about this, Drew, is that AI is not a job taker; it's a task taker.
Mhm.
It's a more efficient task doer, and I realize that you can stack those tasks up, and then it becomes a job, right? So certainly there's disruption, but like you, in our kind of niches and what we do, our lives can be full of tasks in front of us screens that really drain us in many different ways. And that's what AI kind of comes in, to be able to help us do these things faster, more efficiently, and relieve the cognitive load that we feel many times. And we're going
Mhm.
to talk about that today.
Yeah,
And I do think it's a healthier way to look at this,
absolutely.
rather than it doing it for us. So therefore, what value do I have? I think it's take the stuff that drains us emotionally, physiologically, psychologically, and give us back our time so that we
Mhm.
can do what we're really good at as humans.
That's really well said. All right, so let's dive into this because we've said on this podcast before we talk a lot of philosophical, which probably is our favorite. We like doing that, but we're very practical. We're in the game. We're in the weeds every day, working. And so we're each going to kind of unpack some of the daily AI tools that we use for that purpose and kind of show them a little bit. I'm going to screen share a little bit, and just kind of show some of the home pages. I'm not logged into all these accounts. You won't give me your passwords to all your accounts yet. We're still working towards that stage of our friendship. But
You're
uh
playing the long game, Drew.
yeah, exactly. And to be fair, I think just about all the software that I'm using right now, I've learned from you. So this is really just a full on, like, you do a great job of staying up on what's coming up and what's next. And so I think that's one thing that we want to bring to our listeners and our viewers is, helping them with not having to stay up, up so current because we're bringing them the current platforms. But do you mind
Yeah,
if I go first? And the reason why I want to go first is
please.
because I really feel like yours is going to be a lot better than mine, and I don't want to go after you. So let me start with the one that
Come
we that we all use, but I think, and I'm going to screen share this. I'm going to start right at the basic with ChatGPT. I use it
Okay.
every day, and I know that's the most popular one. Everyone's using it, whatnot. But I was talking to a couple of business leaders this last week, and I've been shocked with how many people still are not using ChatGPT to its full potential. And I know there's some other programs out there, and I'm sure you'll talk about that. But let me just share my screen here, and then what I'm going to highlight just in this is training ChatGPT, especially if you're doing client-based work, but even in business, is training ChatGPT based on the voice, the tone, of that client so that it's feeding you very specific things. Like the common argument is, I don't want it to sound like a robot. I don't want to sound like AI. Well, and I think this is newer, and correct me on this, but you can actually go in. I just did it this week, and I customized my settings in ChatGPT and gave it a whole list of do's and don'ts just across the board, right? So I added that there. But for each client, and I have it pulled up on my screen, you can see on the left here, I've got all
I
my
don't.
different.
I don't see it on mine, by the way.
You don't have it on yours? Okay. But there's a list, and for those listening too, there's a list on the left of all my clients, and I have them all labeled. But for instance, one of my clients is a well-known author and speaker and thought leader. He's got books that he's written. I have literally uploaded into Chat GPT tons of his material, his books, his chapters of his books, whatever, learning his voice, learning how he thinks. And so when I'm writing copy or I'm ideating for him, I know it's coming from a place of it's his heart, it's his tone, it's who he is, and so that's the one thing I would highlight about ChatGPT. I I assume most people are using that. I'm surprised how many people still aren't using it, but even if you are using it, make sure that you're training it to do the things and say the things that you want to say in the way that you want it to say it. Anything you would add about leveraging ChatGPT?
No, I think that's great, and not just your client, but you can train it on any content, and that's the
Mhm.
key for successful use of ChatGPT is working with the voice, whether it's your own or your clients,
Yeah.
or if you want, to use it for any other type of usage, is you can either create that custom GPT for it, or you can use that little paperclip that's down in the chat bar there to attach a
Mhm.
document and then instruct it to please analyze this. use the same voice, only stay within the parameters of what's found within these documents or books or
Mhm.
files, etc.
And the better the prompt you give it, I mean, sometimes my prompts are paragraphs long. The better the prompt you give it, the better result you're gonna get. So if you just write a one-line prompt, you're gonna get, an answer accordingly. But if you give it as specific detail as you can think of, um, and one thing I've been enjoying too, just real quick, and we'll move on, but is when I'm driving, I like having a conversation with it.
Yeah,
I don't know
it's
if you
fun.
do that, but on the app, I
I
just
do.
love talking to it, and it talks back, and and you just talk. You don't have to talk you talk in your normal voice, like it's a person, and it gives you, so it actually makes my morning commutes a lot more fun. Um,
Now you need to give me the login to your accounts because I want to read those chats.
That would be a fun little exercise, like, to go in and read, some of them get personal, man. I asked it the other day, "What does it know about me, and what are my strengths and weaknesses, and where can I improve, and how do I be a better leader?" And I'm just, like, surprised at how much I'm like, "Golly, it's learned a lot from me." It did miss my Enneagram number, though, but I think that's because how I show up in ChatGPT is not always as an Enneagram 7, it's more as a
Yep.
Enneagram 3 because 'cause I'm building and so, I thought that was
Yeah.
funny.
I would just say before you move on out of ChatGPT is one little tip is always give it a persona when you write no matter what you're writing, always give it a persona. Like you you are a world-class marketer, you are a ad copywriter, you are a teacher with X amount of years of experience
Yes.
because we underestimate and forget that these things are trained on massive and billions of data points. And if you can give it a persona, it will go and pull from that information and that
Mhm.
data to better get what you're really looking for and how you're using it. So always give it a persona.
That's great. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, mine is act as an expert blank, or
Hmm.
whatever. It's really smart. All right, I'm gonna move on to one that I learned from you, Bob, Ideogram. I've been using that just about every day. Um, because I do a lot of design work, I do a lot of website stuff, and Ideogram is a software where you type in, describe the prompt, or you give it a prompt of what you want to see, and it creates the image and the graphic for you. Um, I just did this new company called the Rooms Media, and you can't see it, Bob, but I have it pulled up on the screen. And so what I wanted was I just wanted some creative inspiration. Um, so I actually used ChatGPT to talk about this business's brand. Then I used ChatGPT to give me an ideogram description that I then turn and put into. So I'll just pull up one so people can see it. This is the logo that I like the best that we'll probably end up using. Now I will say a lot of times I don't use this logo, but then I'll take this logo as inspiration and duplicate it in another program. But it still gets me sometimes 90, 95% there, sometimes 100% there. So I love it and we can use it. Um,
By the way, our logo for this podcast was done on an ideogram.
yeah, that's right. I forgot. Yeah. So, just let me give you an example of the prompt that went into this particular graphic. Told it to design a modern and minimalistic logo for the Rooms Media, a real estate media company specializing in luxury homes. The logo should feature a stylized outline of an open door or room, symbolizing transparency, honesty, and connection. Incorporate the door frame as a part of the O and the word rooms. Use clean geometric lines and an elegant serif font like Playfair display for the text. The color should include deep slate blue, and it gave the hex number there as the primary color, complemented by golden horizon as an accent. The design should feel professional, sophisticated, and inviting, suitable for high end real estate branding. That prompt gave me, now, the one thing it didn't do is it didn't do the O thing, so it doesn't always give you exactly that. But you can retry it, you can remix it, you could go in and adjust it, and it'll, continue to spit out versions. The one thing it doesn't do well yet is if you get into real detail, if you get a design you want and you want to go in and really move it around and change things a lot, unless I haven't figured this part out, which is highly possible. But I haven't been able to go in and really do detailed editing to it. It's more you have to rewrite the prompt better. So that's where I was so far. Have you had any more experience with that, Bob, when it comes to editing?
Well, in the paid version, I believe they have something called Canvas where
Mhm.
it allows you to go in and open it in
Mhm.
modify and play with some sections.
Yeah.
It is generative AI, so it has its limitations. It's not like opening a Photoshop or even Canva. But
Mhm.
one of the little tips on Ideogram that I like to do is I'll get something that's kind of close, or maybe 75% there, or
Mhm.
maybe if there's something with a lot of words, and I don't quite like how it turned out, but I like other aspects of it, I'll go and save the image and pull it into Canvas or Canva, I mean.
Mhm.
And Canva has this like little magic edit options where it will recognize text and then it'll go and then you can actually edit that image that was created in Ideogram on Canva
Yeah.
and change the fonts around or move them or fix
Yep.
them or things like that. So that's just a
Yep.
little tip.
It's great advice. Great advice. All right, moving on. My last one is it's actually a project management AI tool that I use called Motion AI. For me, and I just pulled up my actual calendar here so you can see what's going on in my world. But for me, um, I'm a big picture thinker, strategist, visionary, dreamer. I love that. I will say I struggle, and I've got a great project manager that I work with too that helps me with this. But I struggle more with task management and also just making sure I'm serving my clients well, getting the right things done at the right times based on deadlines. What I love about Motion AI as a calendaring is that I can enter all that stuff into Motion. And similar to ChatGPT, the more information I give it, the better it knows how to turn around and serve me well. So I can put all my client work into this. The way
Mm,
I think through my clients is I do kind of a quarterly, but then a weekly thing. So I'll plan for the first quarter of the year, but then I'll take that quarter and I'll use ChatGPT for this actually. I'll take that quarter and I'll break that quarter down into weekly tasks to make sure I'm hitting the KPIs and SMART goals for that quarter. Once I do that, I then enter all that into Motion. So for that whole quarter for that client, it will tell me what I need to do, when I need to do it. If I'm past the deadline, it'll budget the right amount of time. So if it's like, hey, this is a 2 hour project or 1 hour project, and then based on the other meetings I have, it automatically schedules it on my calendar when I need to work on those things. So if I pull up my
mm,
calendar for the week, I can see actually this afternoon on my calendar, Bob says finish ACS website 1:45 to 3:45. That's a project you and I are working on. We're trying to get that over the hump this week. There's a good chance that if I don't have this program, that's not going to be on my radar and I'm going to miss that deadline of this week. But I know I've got 2 hours this afternoon blocked in. Now, if something urgent comes up and I have to schedule something in that time slot, it will recalibrate automatically and find me a new window of time to work on that task. So anyways, for people that are like me that can get easily overwhelmed with tasks, this is a really helpful tool to make sure that you stay on task and ultimately you can serve your clients well in my case, or just not be overwhelmed with all the work that you have to do. So those are my three.
those are great, man. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing those. I learned a couple things. So
Yeah, good, 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 good. What do you got?
okay, well, I think the first one is as you use ChatGPT, I use Anthropic's Claude.
Okay.
Doesn't have as many bells and whistles, but for me, I find it easier and probably a little bit more human sounding in its content creation. So I will use it to create outlines, ideas, headline topics, things like that to get me going on my writing.
Okay.
It doesn't have web interface, which is a little bit of a drawback, but that actually, and I'll tell you, and my next tool kind of takes the substitutes for that. But I kind of like that. I will use ChatGPT quite often for the
Mhm.
web enablement or things that I need to pull directly from the web. But Claude keeps me focused on just using it as a writing tool. You know, Claude was created by some of the people that left OpenAI that makes ChatGPT in the early years and the early when they started, because they kind of wanted to do something a little more kind of on the rails focus on policy and ethics.
Mhm.
Not that OpenAI wasn't, but they had a very unique vision. And when you use Claude, you kind of get that vibe and feel
Mhm.
very similar in the use case, but it's actually very different in the way that they lay out things. It's got different folders you can use. It's got a bigger context window, really made for content creation. And it's got some other
Gotcha.
things they've released over the last few months that can also aid in writing code if you do that, etc.
That's
So
really
use
cool.
Claude, Anthropic's Claude.
Do you have a like a case study? Like, give us an example of how you've used it.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me give you a case study that involves the next one so that it's
Okay.
kind of plays into each other. So if I do use Claude, and I am working on writing an outline or getting, a first draft of an article, or if a reporter say has asked me, "Hey, can you give us something on this?" And so I'll go do some research, but I'll also maybe use Claude for an outline of here's the topics, here's the voice and style. What are the points that I really need to cover? Or what
Mhm.
do I think about that's maybe non intuitive that I might be missing? So it might give me some options. I'll take that. And then I'll say to myself, I need to go get some facts to back these things up because I'm not going
Mhm.
to rely on Claude. I'm not even going to rely on ChatGPT. So then I take that, whatever it may be, the outline, the article, bullet points, and headline ideas, and then I'll go to my other tool, which you have there, which is Perplexity.
Okay.
And Perplexity is kind of like if Google and ChatGPT had a baby, it would be Perplexity.
Okay.
And it's a search slash answer engine. So you use it for questions just like you would say Claude or ChatGPT,
Okay.
and or for searching for things and getting answers like you would Google. But here's where it's different and unique. It's not really a writing tool and it's not really a content creation tool. It's an
Mhm.
answer engine. So it takes what you put in
Mm.
and then it goes and it searches websites and then it shows you where those websites are over to the right. It gives you like a little
Mhm.
snapshot and then it tells you the answer that you ask and it writes it out using generative AI language, giving you a sentence paragraph, exactly what you asked for. And then it gives you the citations at the end of it or at the end of every time it mentions it so that if you copy that content, you get the answer, but you also get the exact links of where it pulled it from.
Very cool.
So people are concerned about hallucinations and mistakes that AI uses. Perplexity is the answer to that. So I go to Claude, I use it for the writing and the intuitive human like nature of it giving me my bullet points, my outlines. And then I say, okay, now I need the facts, I need the quotes, I need the information. And I go to Perplexity and I paste it in there and say, using this outline, give me 4 quotes from experts in these areas in the last 6 months. And
Mm.
so it'll go and it'll find those, and then I can pull them into my document, my Google Docs, whatever I'm using, and use them all to create that document that I've used
Mm.
AI to find the content and the quotes, and then of course the generative language model in Claude to actually help me with the first pass or the outline.
Bro, that's awesome. I love how you unpack that. I've never done that, never used that, but I will do that now. It's great for research and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I love that. Cool. Anything else on that?
I think that's it. The best thing I would say to people is go and um, play with it, use it. They're real easy. You'll get hooked on Perplexity. I use it more than Google now because it's
Mhm.
real time, up to date information. And the nice thing about it is we're trained on Google to put in keywords and then sort through if it's the content I want. Perplexity gives me the answer right away. So I'll say something as simple as I'm taking my wife out to dinner this weekend. We want to go try, say, a new Asian restaurant in Nashville that just opened up. I'll say, give me the top reviews on these 3 Asian restaurants in Nashville. And what do they say? What are the pros and cons? What's on their menu? And it just immediately gives it to me rather me having to go scroll down, sort through, is that the right place? Is it not? Is it gamed? I.e., are people like putting the best Google results on top? It just gives a good overview.
That's amazing. When you talked about asking, like, real practical things, like where to eat, that kinda thing, it reminded me of this quick story of one of my son's best friends. He's 14 years old, and he was trying to convince his mom as to why he should have TikTok. And so he goes on ChatGPT and basically feeds it this thing, like, "Help me convince my mom to TikTok." The only thing he didn't do is say, "Write this in the words and thoughts of a 14-year-old," because the answers they gave him was so good and so compelling, and he was reading he was talking to her over the phone, and at one point she says, I won't say his name, but I was like, "There is no way you came up with this on your own." And they discovered it was a ChatGPT. And so I told them when they were telling the story, I was like, "You gotta go in and give it another prompt. Talk like I'm a 14-year-old idiot middle school boy." And, but I thought that was hilarious. There's just so many people are starting to use, I mean, using stuff like you said, dinner, reviews. I mean, I'm making some of the
Recipe.
best smoked meat on the smoker I've ever made in my life thanks to, some of these programs that are feeding me great recipes. So there's a lot of really practical day-to-day stuff, but
Yeah, it's awesome. The last one I would just highlight, that it could change your life is one called Gamma AI. And what Gamma is, it's a presentation tool.
mm,
Um, if you have those meetings where you have to have a deck ready, you have to play with maybe PowerPoint, you're pulling your hair out because you hate PowerPoint, or if you're just looking for something that looks better and more creative and a little more pro, Gamma is an AI enabled presentation. So you can create your presentations. It'll also create beautiful documents. So anything that you need a deck like presentation like content. And the thing I like about it is it's connected with a bunch of APIs. So it pulls from Ideogram, which you talked about. It pulls
mhm.
from ChatGPT. It pulls from Claude. It pulls from lots of different models and APIs to do several things. So if you have your presentation content already created in the format of slide one, here's the content, you can take that and paste it in, and you can tell Gamma to keep everything exactly the same, or you can paste in an outline and ask it to enhance and create a more engaging. So it will actually take the outline and then create the slides accordingly. And so you just paste it in there. It creates as many slides. You says create 8 slides, create 10, create 30, and it gives you. You can say the level of detail,
Mhm.
uh, light, medium, heavy, and then you can push go, and it will create beautiful slides and different type, and use the content to determine the look of those slides. So it might be some sort of bar graph it creates on one. It might be a 1, 2, 3 points on a timeline for another, and then it will start pulling in graphics for you. And you can specify the graphics. Say, I want to pull them from the web. I want to pull them from Unsplash if you want real photographs. But then you can say, no, create AI images, and you can then specify where. Do you want it from Ideogram? Do you want it from DALL-E? Do you want it from a Google model or a Meta model? And then it will do that all. And then it's all done. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. I got 25 slides. And as you start to go through, you're like, I don't like that image. You can go in and click and go replace it, redo it however you want.
Mm.
And so the time that it saves, and there's lots of formats and templates and color schemes that you can put in it, is just amazing, where you can get a beautiful presentation literally in minutes versus what may have taken hours or days before.
Wow.
Uh, and it will redo documents as well if you want to, create a beautiful 1 page or 2 pager as well. So
This is
Gamma,
cool.
check it out. It's a really great tool.
So for those that are watching, not listening, for the first probably 75% of Bob's talk just now, I had Gamma AI pulled up. That is not the website for that. I was as you were talking about, I was like,
Oh,
this
it's
is
not?
something. No, it's Gamma app, APP. I have it
Ah,
up now. But as you were talking, and that was my fault. You didn't give me that. I just searched for it and I pulled up the wrong one. As you were talking, I was like, this is not at all saying what he's describing. And then I searched it on my phone just now. I was like, oh, that's because I got the wrong. So the what's up there now is the right one. Gamma app, not Gamma AI.
yeah.
This looks
Sorry, I
awesome.
did .ai as well.
Yeah, no, this is really cool, man. Actually perfect timing because I have a presentation I gotta work on this week, and, I've used, there's Beautiful AI I've used and some other things, but this one looks a little bit more advanced. I don't know, man. I think we should do this kind of thing maybe once a month or once every other month because there's so many great tools out there, and this has been really helpful and educational for me, just to kind of hear you talk through some of these things, and hopefully it's helpful um, for those listening and watching as well because we'd love to be able to take some of the work out of it for you and just kind of unpack for you. It's almost like a digital unboxing of AI
Yeah, that's
tools.
exactly what
So.
it is. We're here to talk about how to make your life more human centric, more um, the ability to give your time back, and these AI tools that we've talked about today. What would you say maybe 3 years ago when you were just putting your foot in the water and
Mhm.
starting to do this versus today? How much time does it save you on a daily basis?
So that's a great question. I think about that a lot because my business is only, I would say, I think we're about 2.5 years old. So we're baby. I don't know how I would do it without it. Like I couldn't imagine like and you've been marketing and doing this a long time. So you could speak better like, you know, before AI, after AI. I don't think I could do I don't wouldn't know how to run my business without it. That's how much time it saves me every week. Like um so the efficiency, the quality of the work that I'm doing, I don't know a world without AI. I pretty much started my business using AI tools. Even things for like podcasting and video editing, and what we can do more unboxing with like Opus and some of the Autopod stuff that I use for podcast editing. Some of those things that just literally take hours and probably even days of work off my or a lot of money. I'd have to hire out a lot of these things, but I can edit a podcast in 10 minutes, which if I had to do it manually would probably take me 2 days. And I'm not
Yeah.
exaggerating. That's how long it would take me. So I don't know. You speak to that because you've been doing this before and after. What has it been like for you?
Yeah, it's a different world altogether. I got in early and using AI for writing and content and help in that area. So I've been doing that for, gosh, I don't know, 6, 7 years, probably using Jasper and other tools like that. But
Mhm.
the amount of time and stress alone, like mental health, is huge. Um,
Mhm.
you know, Imagine like being not having any AI tools and you have to do a presentation in front of, say, investors or a client or, um, you know, maybe a monthly report. And you have two or three of those that are due and they all are requiring a PowerPoint with insights. Man, that would take days to do without any type of AI assistance. Or, like you said, you would have to hire an assistant, and that's still a very real option and recommended uh, in a lot of situations. But I also know too that I would have been paying, people a lot more money to take the stress on my shoulders, whereas now I can handle it, I can schedule it, I can do it. It's enjoyable, and it gives me so
Mhm.
much of my life back.
Yes.
Again, I can insert my expertise and my human connection at those presentations.
That's
Like
right.
I would be working on the report right up until I walk into that thing, right? Now it's like, okay, did it. It's been done for several days. I can think and focus and really be present in that moment versus, oh man, did I get this right? And how does this look? I don't love this, but hopefully they won't notice it, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm. I love that you mentioned the mental health component, something you and I are both passionate about, and I think it's well, you asked me before we started recording, "How you doing?" And I told you, I'm like, "Hey, I was a little overwhelmed this morning," but when I enter that stuff into I think that's why I chose motion. When I enter that stuff into motion and it shows me basically a roadmap of how I'm gonna get everything done, man, my anxiety level just I can almost actively feeling it coming down because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, I don't need to be overwhelmed. I thought I had a bunch of stuff. I got it out of my head into motion. It showed me how it's all gonna get done." And man, mental health wise, I would probably still be feeling overwhelmed. I'd be feeling rushed in this interview. We got to wrap it because I got to get back to work stuff. Now I'm at peace because I know, oh, I have a plan. I couldn't have done that, and that was just by me just typing tasks into this software. So that's our hope, and we're going to be redundant about this because we're so passionate about it. But the use of AI and technology, and we're going to talk about storytelling and other marketing techniques, list building, other things we're passionate about, not just AI, but because that's really a hot topic these days. Our hope and our desire and what we've experienced personally is greater clarity, greater mental health, greater human connection. It's not a replacement, and so hopefully that comes through loud and clear in our messaging.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better, Drew.
You probably could have, but thanks, Bob. I'm loving these conversations, man. Thank you for giving your time
Absolutely.
towards it, and like we said, hopefully it's helpful, and we're gonna keep going, keep building it.
Yeah, this was a fun one. It's practical, like you said, and I learned a few things, and hopefully our listeners did as well. And I just encourage them to don't hesitate to reach out if you have some questions about it.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right, talk to you soon.